Yo, what's up? I'm SoaR, and welcome back to my channel where I like to talk about all things spooky, scary, and have a little bit of fun. Today on the channel, I was going to be covering Clown in a Cornfield, but because AMC A-List has severely messed up my whole account, how about I tell you guys a story about how I used to edit for FaZe Clan? And that's not clickbait, I actually did edit for members of FaZe Clan way back in the day. Yeah, we'll treat this as a little story time today, getting to know Eldritch Terror for those who are interested. This isn't anything recent, I haven't been involved in any IRL streaming or anything like that, but back in the golden days of Call of Duty, back in the earliest days of the Call of Duty trickshotting montage era, I was actually kind of a low-key player on that field. Let me tell you guys a story about how I fumbled a generational bag, and I mean honestly, I think about this all the time. It is absolutely brutal. Let me tell you guys a little story about Vexing Edits. Oh man, I haven't said that name in a long time. So everybody's got a story, everybody's got a journey, and for me, my long road to ending up right here started with that. When I was just a young boy and a little terror, I decided to start learning how to edit when I was about 13 years old, and it all started with Call of Duty. Those skills that I taught myself back then, I would use throughout my entire life. Learning how to edit, perfecting my craft, going to film school, and all the way up to today with my job as a freelance graphic designer and video editor, as well as making YouTube videos here on the channel. The long road here had to start somewhere, didn't it? Let me take you guys back in time, way back in time, all the way back to like 2011 through like 2013 era. YouTube back then was a very different landscape. It was a different place altogether. It was a lot harder to make money and more people were doing things just out of the fun of it. And the Call of Duty like montage trickshotting thing all kind of happened by happenstance, I believe. Call of Duty montages in their own sense have been going on for a couple of years at this point. First started by guys like Z-Grizz and Optic with like Optic Predator making quick scoping like a whole thing. But the FaZe Clan guys did something that just grabbed the world's attention. And when I say the world, I really mean that. A lot of people were tuning in for this Call of Duty stuff. A group of guys that were both Call of Duty players as well as skaters made a correlation between doing tricks on a skateboard and doing tricks in the video game. And that started this whole craze. It's known today like a meme. Like everybody knows about Call of Duty trickshotting, quickscoping, and FaZe Clan, but this is the booming point for them. This is where it all kind of took off, and they weren't the only guys doing it at the time. They were definitely some of the first, if not the very first, to start this whole thing. I mean, half of the trickshots were named after their members back in the day, but you had clans like Dare and SoaR and all these other guys that were piling on. There were big channels, there were little channels, there were ones that at some points felt like they were competing with FaZe in actual capacities. But over the years, through their resilience and through their ability to update their content, regardless of how many people it's pushed to the sides, they have stayed alive in the whole thing. Now, most of you guys know FaZe as IRL streamers, people that are on Twitch just kind of doing their thing, vibing out every day. But back then, if you didn't have an Xbox 360 and you weren't hitting trick shots every day, then they were not even taking a look at you. It's pretty crazy how far things have come, how different things are nowadays. But that's an introduction on like that, okay? Now let's talk about me. I started playing Call of Duty when I was like a really little kid. I was like 13, 14, something like that. Some of my friends at school and my family members got me into it, but I was never really good at the game. I was like decently alright at quickscoping and stuff like that, but I've probably hit like 3 trick shots in my entire life. I was never gonna make it in that landscape. So people like me that were really into this thing, but that couldn't really get their hands on the controller like that, eventually got into editing the videos for these people. I started editing with Sony Vegas and Adobe products straight up when I was like 13 years old. I remember buying like a Dazzle as like a capture card, and every year for Christmas and my birthday asking for things exclusively so that I could work on these Call of Duty videos. It was really like that. I dedicated like all of my time and effort into learning how to become an editor, how to use Photoshop. Those skills translated in a lot of different ways throughout my life. I'm really glad that I did that. But the root of it all, the start of it all, was Call of Duty videos. Now, I first got my foot in the door not because of making trickshot montages or editing montages at all, really. Back then, those weren't really that popular. Where I got my start with editing was actually with competitive sniping videos. Before there were names like FaZe Clan and stuff like that, there were all these competitive sniping groups that would get together because they all thought they were really good and they would have matches against each other. Sometimes they would just have big open lobbies where people would just come in and flex on each other so they could find people that they thought were interesting and good. And then these teams would hire people like me. Literally, they would pay us like $5 to spend hours in these scrim matches recording everything because they didn't want to buy their own capture cards, and then they wanted us to edit them down, condense them, and then have like highlight reels of the whole thing so that they could upload it to YouTube. But the cool thing was that they would do these all the time, And like I said, I was 13, so learning how to edit $5 at a time, come on, that adds up quick enough. I was able to buy myself like little $30 headsets or peripherals for my gaming setup, you know what I mean? It was cool. It was a foot in the door. And then as things progressed, as montages started becoming more popular, I got better at editing, and then I started working on those instead. And again, not super lucrative. People would either pay you exposure or they would pay you like 20 bucks. It really wasn't much. But for a small kid that didn't need much, yeah, it was cool. And it gave me an opportunity to, over time, sharpen my skills and hone in on this thing that I was really finding a passion for. I've always had an appreciation for like movies and for the arts and stuff like that, and when I started getting into editing and learning how to break those things down, the way that I kind of looked at movies and television kind of changed, and I was able to make my own visions on stuff like that. It was pretty interesting. But as time went on, people making like montages based around their sniping gameplay and stuff like that was starting to become more and more popular. They were starting to group up and form teams. Those teams would then go out and find some editors that they could nail down and just like put in their group for exposure and make them edit like 5 to 6 montages a month, just trying to get as much content out on YouTube as possible. So that's where I started to fall into this whole thing. It happened at first because I was with a group that had a competitive sniping league, but they also had like a montage league, and some of the montage guys wanted to start to work with me. The group at the time was called Dawn Sniping. That dissolved, and some of the members from that went to another group called NMS, and those guys wanted to work with me, so I went there for a little bit. Those guys were partnered up with another league that was like a little bit bigger of a group called WP at the time, and I got in with them. And WP is where I sat for a minute. This is eventually how I started doing work for FaZe Clan. Now, not a lot of people are gonna understand at all what I'm talking about here, but if you do understand, then good on you. And WP were a group of snipers that were real life friends with FaZe Temper. They like grew up together, they lived in the same area, went to school together, and would play games together often. Why they went and started their own group instead of joining FaZe is another question I didn't ever really ask, but whatever. Probably just didn't meet the cut. But they started their own clan, and I was kind of their head editor. I was like the lead guy in charge for that whole thing. They put me in charge of like helping out with getting the other editors, like sourcing out people who were good and bad, and they also put me in charge of editing all of their major team tages for the whole thing. And being that these guys were real life friends with FaZe Temper, whenever their team tages especially would come out, he would amplify these things like crazy. He would signal boost them and make sure that as many people saw them as possible, and that is how I got their attention and the attention of the Call of Duty community as a whole. So through these team tages, I started to get a little bit more exposure, and I started to get a lot more offers from people that were actually like paying me money to do edits. Again, it wasn't much. It was like another 25 bucks here or there, sometimes 50, maybe 75 for a nice one, but it wasn't a whole lot. Most of the stuff I was doing was still like for exposure, and that's where I got wrapped up with these FaZe dudes. It's really hard to rack my brain and remember all the edits that I did for those FaZe guys because most of them are gone nowadays, but I vividly remember doing a little bit of work for like Rain and Tico. FaZe Prizey I did a little bit of work for, and I never did any official work for Temper, but I did get to game with him a few times, and I know that he was a fan of my work. And this is why I say I really feel like I fumbled a generational bag, because I was there at the earliest days of this stuff, and I was really starting to do good. When I started hitting my peak and I started doing work for these FaZe guys is like right when I decided to quit. I truly feel like if I had just hung in there a little bit longer, maybe another year or two even, I'd probably be living in mansions and throwing around money with the rest of these FaZe guys, but nope. So something that's very unfortunate is that back in the day, it was kind of the trend to just up and delete your channel when you were quitting YouTube. It's ridiculous to think nowadays, and this is before everything was purchased by Google, so the landscape was just so different. But yeah, we would just up and delete our channels. It would delete all of the videos that we've ever posted, and then that would be that, which is absolutely miserable, because over the years, as I've gone back and tried to watch these videos for nostalgic purposes, more and more of them have been deleted every single time I check. It's brutal. Nowadays, if you look up my old tag, then all you're seeing is just the earliest stuff that I've ever done, re-uploads of re-uploads of re-uploads in the crappiest quality that you can imagine, and it just sucks that none of my best work is available to be viewed, and that I can't really show much to you guys of that era. But that's why we're happy that we have things like the Wayback Machine. So if you go and look for my old channel, it doesn't actually exist anymore. If you plug my old URL back into the Wayback Machine, there are a couple of snapshots available. They're all the way from 2012, but they exist. it does pull up a snapshot of my channel. And man, does this give me feelings of nostalgia. It's been a long time since I've seen this channel, wow. A few things I gotta talk about here is one, my bio, geez. Vex Stoker, I haven't heard that name for a long time. So I had to protect my identity in some capacity. I wasn't trying to get doxxed that early. Still not, for real. YouTube goals, join Lucid Designs, edit a major montage for someone in FaZe or Optic. Obviously I didn't edit my bio very much because I got a couple of edits for FaZe on this channel, but we'll hit the videos in a second here. Place first in a major editing contest. I did win third in one point in a FaZe editing contest. And get a YouTube partnership. Well, I got one of those now. I'll tell you, it's a lot easier these days, past self. These quotes are awesome too. That was dope. Editing, FaZe Temper. Really nice sync, well done. Alzo. Alzo was one of those FaZe editors. He was a member of Lucid Designs, and he was somebody that I really looked up to at the time. Shouts out to those who know. Me, you're sick at editing. FaZe Prizy. This is a guy that I did end up doing an edit for, and that is uploaded on this channel. I wish I could watch that video back. And dude, you're one of the illest editors I have ever seen. Dre the Concept. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that guy some more. I don't know what this guy Azo is down here, but one can only imagine, right? There's not a lot of videos uploaded even here. I remember back then I used to delete them all the time. If I uploaded a video and 2 weeks later I didn't think it was worth being on my channel anymore, I would just dump that thing. And what's crazy is I can't find any of these videos that are currently uploaded to like this channel on here anymore. The only ones I can find are the ones that I dumped off because I didn't think they were good enough, and they got re-uploaded to other channels, and those are the only ones I can see. It's also a shame that this was January of 2012 because I did have quite a few more things after this. Seeing all these comments on the channel is really nice. I miss back when we used to do that stuff. And scrolling on it for a second, I was like, what is my background here? And then I realized back then, it was before I was really good with Adobe, and I used to do everything in Sony Vegas. My YouTube background here is supposed to look like a Sony Vegas project window. This is so funny to me. And this written on the side here, I've never used Adobe After Effects on any of my edits. I'm just so pro that I know how to beat the odds, is so funny coming from a 15-year-old me, man. This was truly the beginning of my journey, and it's only been up from there. So everything was riding high. I was doing good in WP, I was working with some of these FaZe guys, and then I got an offer from another clan called TGN at the time. They were a little bit bigger than WP. WP had like 25,000 subscribers. TGN had like 150,000 subscribers or something like that. It was a big jump for me. I was doing some really good work for those guys. I made a lot of good connections, and I talked to a lot of cool people during that time. But if I remember right, and I'm really straining my memory here, that whole thing dissolved because of like inner feudings or something like that, which at that point I decided I had enough credibility built up behind my name to just become like a solo act and not be a part of any one clan, so I could do works for everybody and not feel so nailed down. And now, outside of all of this, I was still a kid. I was 15 years old. I was in middle school. I moved around a lot. I got into a lot of scraps as a kid. I got kicked out of a few places. And when I moved to a new town, I was trying not to be such a bad kid, you know what I mean? I was trying not to get in any trouble. I kept my head down. I didn't really talk to people a whole lot. I just focused on my edits. I did my work, and that was it. Now, one day, I'm sitting at the lunch table, just minding my own business, not talking to nobody. And there were some kids sitting at the other end, and they started talking about Call of Duty. Specifically, they're talking about FaZe. They're talking about like montages and trick shots and stuff. And I hear them mention one that I edited. So of course, I call down to the lunch table talking about some. Yeah, that's me. And they were like, what? No way. That absolutely cannot be true. And I was like, nah, for real. And I pulled out my phone and I showed them my YouTube and everything, and they couldn't believe it. It blew their minds. I got in with these group of friends. We played Call of Duty a lot, and because I was friends with them in real life, I didn't really want to mix them with the people that I knew like just online. I didn't want to dox myself. So over time, I would just spend more time with my in real life friends, playing with them, and less playing with the people that I'd be editing $25 videos for here and there. I still kept up with it, but I was starting to branch off a little bit and to start playing music and stuff like that. Another expensive hobby. If I'm not spending all of my money on like gaming and like buying stuff so that I can edit, upgrading computers and stuff like that, then I'm buying guitars and amplifiers and drumsticks and all of that stuff. So take you to my last project. I was doing an edit for this mysterious guy named Dre, a guy who offered to pay me $400 to edit a team taj for his clan called Doom. Now, you can't find the original upload for this, but I did find a re-upload for it that had had a striking amount of views on it still. I mean, 113,000 views on a re-upload, that's crazy. And if you check out the description here, they're basically just glazing me the entire time. My hands were all over this teamtage. I obviously edited it, none of the gameplay was mine, but the whole concept around it was something that I came up with, and being promised that kind of money, as well as other promises that this guy was making, just like really made me excited about this project. I thought that this was going to be huge for me. Like I said, I had only been making so much money on these edits up until this point, and this guy was offering me decent money, especially for a 15-year-old, you know what I mean? And if you check the comments on the channel, even back in this snapshot right here, you can see this guy flexing. On a 15-year-old flexing. Bro was selling me stories that he was going to get me in with like some of the biggest guys in the industry. So I put a lot into this edit, but I had a lot going on at the time. I was in a band, I was going into high school, I was making edits at the same time for like other people. And I remember really stressing myself out and cranking this edit out to be like anything that I could for this money, you know what I mean? And it went well. Like the edit went great, the montage went great, everybody was happy about it. If you look at the comments on this re-upload even, everybody's like glazing me in there. And what happened? What do you think happened? The guy blocked me. He didn't pay me, and I never heard from him again. He completely went ghost, and I can't to this day find any trail of that guy on the internet. It was brutal. It was soul crushing. None of those promises he made went through, and I didn't know what to do. He wasn't getting me plugged in with anybody. He wasn't going to get me a YouTube partnership, and he did not pay me the $400. None of these promises happened. So me, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe my family's right. Maybe the people on the internet leaving nasty comments are right. Maybe I'm wasting my time here. Maybe the last like 3 years of my childhood, I've just been wasting learning how to do all this stuff. I'm just gonna be getting ripped off by people. So I said, screw it. You know what? I'm gonna go play punk rock music with my friends. I sold my Xbox. I sold all my gear. I sold everything. I was scorned, and I went and I took it out in the music studio. I never stopped editing though, and I'm glad that I didn't. Today, I'm a freelance editor and graphic designer. I love to make YouTube videos on the side. Pretty much everything that I do uses these skills that I taught myself when I was just 13 years old. Needless to say, I'm a lot better at my craft nowadays than I was back then when I was a child, but it's baby steps. Everybody's got to start somewhere, and practice makes perfect. Everybody gets better over time. Nobody just tries something the first time and they're 100% perfect at it. Every single person has to put in the hours, I promise you. If you want to be a professional gamer, if you want to be a YouTuber, if you want to be an editor, if you want to play music in a band, you got to learn how to do it, you got to practice it, you got to perfect it, you got to spend time on it, and hard work is rewarded. Maybe another day I'll tell you the story about how I was in a regional touring band that went all the way from New York to Texas a couple of times, but I don't really feel comfortable doxing myself just yet, so we'll get there when we get there. But I hope you enjoyed our little story time today. I don't know how this video is going to fare with my subscribers or the algorithm, but I had to throw something out there to stay consistent. If there's one thing that quitting out on Call of Duty when I was so close to the cusp taught me, if there's one thing that all of the experience in that band that I had taught me, it's that I have been so close to victory, I've been so close to success many times, and every time I'm there, I get there by the skin of my teeth and something happens, you know what I mean? But here's my promise to you guys. On this channel, with this whole thing that I'm doing here, I'm gonna see it all the way through. I'm gonna stay on it, I'm gonna stay consistent, I'm gonna stay posting, I'm gonna keep making my content better every single time I upload, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that this one sticks, and to make sure that the Eldritch Terror channel really does something here. That's my promise to y'all, and my promise to myself. And hey, if any of you FaZe guys see this, and by some chance remember me, I'm still available. Let me edit a little montage for you, you know what I mean? I'll cut up some clips for your highlight channel, just holler at me, I swear. But anyways, that's enough of that for today. If you enjoyed my video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. And also, if you enjoyed it, feel free to browse the rest of my catalog and find some other videos. You might like those too. Feel free to send it to a friend you think might enjoy it. If you were there for those early days of trickshotting between like Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops 2, then drop a comment down below. Pay your respects for the golden era. I've been Eldritch Terror. Whether your day's been going good or bad today, I hope it gets better.